Hello, welcome one and all to the 6th official episode of Dylan Explains Everything. My name's Dylan, and in case you couldn't tell by the title, I'm the one explaining everything, including today's topic, the Byzantine Empire. I'm going to be running through a lot of facts, so if you're curious as to where I get my information, check the description below for a list of links. So what is the Byzantine Empire? The Byzantine Empire, also called the Eastern Roman Empire, started when the emperor at the time, Constantine, moved the capital of Rome to a Greek colony called Byzantium. The city was known as Constantinople, which is known as the City of Constantine. Despite not being called Roman people, the Byzantine people considered themselves normal Christian Romans. Eventually, Constantinople became one of the most populated cities in the world. Then, in 395 AD, Theodosius, the emperor of the time, died, and the next emperor, Diocletian, split Rome officially into two places, the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. There were many reasons for this split, including how weak the West was compared to the East, and having equal taxes across the Roman Empire, even though the West had horrible trade and was facing wars with Goths and Huns crippling their economy. Another reason for the split was because of the rise of Christianity. Christianity is a monotheistic religion, meaning there's only one God. And since the emperor was known for being a god, Christianity weakened his political power and reputation, making it harder to control such a vast empire. Another reason for the split was the difference in Christianity between the East and the West. The West was mainly Catholic, while the East was mainly Eastern Orthodox. Another reason, though small, for the split was the language barrier between the two sides. The Western Roman Empire mainly spoke Latin, while the Eastern Roman Empire mainly spoke Greek. But this was a very small problem since both sides were taught each other's languages. The main reason for the split, though, was that Rome had simply gotten too big to be handled. The outer provinces were constantly getting ransacked and destroyed. After the split, the West almost immediately fell. A combination of inflation, decreased trade, war, and decreased agriculture production made the West really fail to thrive. The West also started purchasing luxury goods from the East. The problem was they didn't have any money to pay for these, so they started printing more money in order to get more. The problem was this caused a huge inflation, and they ended up having huge economic problems. This, combined with piracy and Germanic invasions, really made their economy go away. The West also wasn't doing well in military. The leaders of their military were amateurs who didn't have any experience, and their political leaders were the same way. This caused them to have to turn to mercenaries in order to have an army. The problem with this is their entire army is made up of cheap mercenaries who have no loyalty to Rome. So when the Germanic invasion started, they really didn't do anything to help. After waves of Goths, Visigoths, Angles, Saxons, and other Germanic invaders took over the Western Roman Empire and settled down, the empire died officially in 476 AD. The East, however, was doing amazing. Its capital and most of the nation was secured geographically, and it didn't have many threats since it was east of Europe. Their economy was also doing amazing, because their leaders were able to wisely spend their economic resources to prevent an inflation, but also a depression. The empire and political powers were also much better. They had an all-powerful emperor, but he normally asked the Senate for help, and the Senate was made of military leaders who worked their way up through the ranks instead of just people who were rich. Their law system was also really good. The Justinian Code, made in 565 AD, was a set of rules that lasted for almost a millennium. It contained over 1 million words and set the law up for the entire nation. There was a social ranking in the Eastern Roman Empire. The wealthier you were, meaning you owned lots of land, made you higher in the social ranking, as did your family name, your education, and your military ranking. Your job was mainly dependent on your social ranking. The higher you were, the more likely you were to have a job in law, administration, or commerce. After that were artisans, then farmers, then the workers who worked on those farms or their lands, and then slaves, which were normally prisoners of war. Women's jobs were also somewhat determined by their social ranking. If you're aristocratic, then you'd most likely have a job at home where you just stayed and watched the kids and took care of the house. These women were also allowed to own land, but not take place in government. Widows mostly just took care of their kids, but most women also ran businesses, farms, or other things. Byzantine owned most of Europe, as well as Egypt, Jordan, Palestine, and Greece. Even though Greece wasn't that important geographically, it was a symbol for the Greco-Roman culture that the Byzantine people wanted. Byzantine art, agriculture, politics, and relations were all influenced by Christianity. Even though paganism had been around longer, Christianity was the more dominant religion. The church was led by a lead pastor who was picked out by the emperor himself. Then other smaller towns and provinces would have a lead bishop in that town, and they would have insane wealth and political power. At the time, religion was quite a touchy subject with most nations. If you didn't follow a specific religion that they told you, they would most likely kill you. Byzantine, however, let you freely practice Christianity, paganism, Islam, and Judaism, to name a few. Byzantine wasn't perfect, though. There was a huge debate at the time going on within the church on whether or not to use icons, which were symbols of religious figures. The Pope thought icons were blasphemous, but most people really liked using them. This also sparked the debate of what Jesus was, completely human, part divine, or completely divine. Back to great things in Byzantine, their art was very different from the normal Roman art. Theirs was more abstract and two-dimensional, while Romans were more realistic and represented things like sculptures. Art wasn't a very socially accepted thing, though. In fact, most artists avoided putting their signature on their paintings in order to avoid recognition. However, most of the artworks still made it to today, and we view them at museums. The main exception, though, is religious artwork, which was mostly destroyed during the icon debate mentioned before. This means that there were paintings that could still be around to this day, but they were destroyed because they had religious figures on them. Byzantine did hit a dark age, though. A little while after Justinian I died in 565 AD, a lot of the territory he captured was being attacked by outside nations. This included the Arabs attacking in 630 AD. This, coupled with the church destroying citizens' idols, led to an era of misfortune and attacks from foreign nations, causing the first fall of the Byzantine Empire. This wasn't the end of Byzantine, though. In the 9th century, they got their military back to what it used to be and captured most of the land they had in the 11th century. After this, the empire reached a half-stable time. They got most of the land back, but they were always under threat of Slavs, nomads in Turkey, and plenty of other nations. They did live on peacefully, though, until about 1204, when something bad happened. The Fourth Crusade happened. This crusade affected the capital, Constantinople, which was attacked and captured by crusaders. They put a new Latin king in there, and his bloodline reigned for generations until in the late 13th century a Greek general took over. In the late 15th century, the empire really struggled, as religious officials were given more power by citizens than political officials. Then, in 1453, the Ottomans took over Constantinople, making it Istanbul in modern-day Turkey, ending the Byzantine Empire and the entire Roman Empire for good. Whether you think this is interesting or just boring, you have to admit Byzantine did affect Europe and most of modern-day art, architecture, economy, and much more. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, why not click subscribe to see more like it, and click the like button to let me know you did enjoy it. If you have an idea for Dyllon Explains Everything, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. And with all that being said, my name's Dyllon, and I explain everything.